On today's Monday Night Travel, we're joined by Rick Steves' guide Apostolos Douras to explore Epirus, Greece's beautifully rugged northwest corner. We start our tour in the region's bustling lakeside capital of Ioannina. Then we make for the Pindus Mountains to explore stone villages and hike the verdant Vikos Gorge. Later on, we attend a summer festival to eat and dance with locals. And then we travel back in time to Dodona, Greece's most ancient oracle. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Monday Night Travel with Rick Steves here. My name is Emily Burks, and I am delighted to be your host this evening as we travel to the often overlooked corner of Northwest Greece, Epirus, with a very special guide. And now, without further ado, let's explore Epirus. Epirus is, as we will see, Epirus has a lot to offer the traveler. There's mountain ranges sprinkled with stone villages, pristine coastlines, and we are so fortunate to be doing that exploring with a lovely guest. He is a Athens native, a Rick Steves Greece guide, and an all-around lovely person. It is Apostolos Douras. Apostolos, welcome back, I should say, to Monday Night Travel.
Kalimera, morning from Epirus, from the northwest of Greece. It's 4 o'clock in the morning here. I woke up, I had my Greek coffee, and I'm ready to go. I have to say that it's dark outside. I can see out of the window it's dark, but I can hear only the sounds of the birds, of the nightingale and the owl. So these are let's say, the sounds of Epirus at 4 o'clock in the morning. So thank you, and I would like to welcome our viewers. Good morning.
Well, good morning, Apostolos. That sounds very peaceful. And last time you joined us on MNT, you were here to talk about Greek Easter, and you alluded to your second home in Epirus. And I know that you are an Athens native, so I was wondering if you could just tell us more about how you ended up in Epirus as a city native yourself.
So what I have to say, first of all, I am in the country house. This is the place where my family owns some land, and we have a house here. So I have to say that my great-great-grandfather came from the area. The family used to have animals, goats, livestock here. And of course, later they moved to the city. I was born, I grew up, third generation of Athenians, but always I wanted to explore my roots, and I was coming back here for the summers. So this is how my connection came with Epirus, and I'm always back. I like spending time half of the year when I'm not traveling. I spend half of the time in Athens and half of the time here. I can work from here. I can enjoy nature, and of course, I have a lot of friends, a lot of local friends I have connected to. So that means a lot to me to be in this special part of Greece.
Very nice. And I know that this is a picture from your window at your country house. Can you tell us what your perfect day in Epirus looks like?
It is like the perfect day when I wake up in the morning. This is one of the windows that you look outside. It's definitely, it's a room with the view. So it feels very calm. Every morning I wake up, I make my coffee before I start doing work, going for a walk, meeting my fellow villagers. And I am in a village that has only 12 people they live here. So it's pretty isolated and remote up in the mountains in northern Epirus.
Oh, beautiful. So I know that this is kind of a vacation spot for you to relax. And, when you aren't leading Rick Steves tours, you lead the Athens in the Heart of Greece tour. Sometimes you are leading your own tours of Epirus. Can you tell us how you got started with these Epirus tours?
Yes, Epirus was always the hidden gem for me. It was like my secret. I used to travel all over Europe, organizing tours, being involved in tourism. So at some point, I started doing research about the region. And of course, I established very good relations with the locals. At some point, then during COVID time, during the lockdown, I had all the time to compile all this information together, my connections, my research, all the knowledge coming together. And I started a tour in this fascinating part of Greece that not many people know, because I want to offer something off the beaten track, away from the tourist crowds, away from over-tourism. So that was my, let's say, my own alternative to a special tour in Greece.
Very nice. So I know, I think some of your previous tour members for Athens in the heart of Greece are joining us tonight. So if any of you finish the Rick Steves Greece tour and find you need some more Greece in your life, you should definitely check out Apostolos' wonderful tours. Well, moving on, I think we should start our show off tonight with just a quick orientation to Epirus, since I think a lot of our viewers may not be familiar with the region. Can you just get us situated geographically, Apostolos?
Of course, as we can see on the map, we're in the northwest of Greece, and geographically, the northwest part of Greece, northern of the Epirus, we call it Epirus in modern Greek, we have another country, we have the country of Albania. So Epirus, southern of Albania, and as we can see, I am at the moment in the region of Ioannina, which is the biggest region in Epirus, and it has its own capital with the same name, Ioannina, and there are three more counties. In total, therefore, there's the one which is Thesprotia, and also Preveza, that these two counties, a big part of them is the coastline, where we have this amazing water, turquoise water, and it is the Ionian Sea. So this is where you would sail, you would travel to go to Italy, to the west. And these are two beautiful, they have mountains, they have coastline. Also, the county of Preveza, it's quite interesting because we have one of the most interesting Roman sites, archaeological sites of Nicopolis, which was an ancient Roman city that it was built, it was constructed by Octavian. Later, he became the general Augustus, because in that area, the very famous Battle of Actium, 31 BC took place, and Augustus, he fought and won a battle against Cleopatra, Queen Cleopatra of Egypt, and Mark Antony the general. So it's a very important battle that took place off the coast of Epirus, and we have an ancient city. And also the fourth county, it's Arta. Arta is another beautiful county of Epirus with a great Byzantine past, and also another beautiful range of mountains we're going to be talking later, called Jumerka. And of course, Ioannina, the biggest region, we have a lot of national parks, we have different groups of villages, like the Zagori, the Pogoni, where I am now, because the country house in the area of Pogoni, and another group of villages, Mastoroforia. So every county has its own beauties and its own, let's say, secret destinations that it's worth for someone to explore.
Beautiful. And I know you mentioned there is mountains and beautiful beaches all in Epirus. How long would it take if somebody was in the Pindus Mountains? Would they be able to easily get to the coastline in the same day? Are there any islands that somebody could visit during this same trip?
You can, because there is now the let's say, the necessary road network at the moment that you can have access to the seaside. It depends, of course, where you are. Epirus is the most mountainous county region of Greece, and you can go to the seaside in 30 minutes, or it might take you an hour and a half. From my country house where I am now, it takes me about an hour and 15 minutes. So it doesn't take so long to reach the sea. You can go for a daily trip, and you can go for swimming to the crystal clear waters. You can take a boat, and you can go to some of the islands. You can go to the island of Corfu, or you can go to the island of Paxi, Paxos, and Adipaxos, or you can just take a daily cruise and explore some uninhabited islands off the coast of Epirus. What is unique about Epirus, it combines the sea with the mountain, and of course, because of the mountainous area, we have a lot of lakes and rivers and creeks that even now in the summer, you can go for swimming in a beautiful river up in the Pindus mountains. And that makes unique as an area of Greece because it combines and the seaside and the mountain region.
Beautiful. And the destinations that we will be visiting virtually tonight, are these also destinations that you visit on your tours of Epirus?
Yes, all the destinations we're going to be talking tonight and all the pictures we're going to be seeing. I would just like to point out the slideshow, all the photographs we see, they're taken by me. So they are real pictures with no filters that are taken by me during my travels, during my tour in Epirus.
Well, you are an excellent photographer as well as an excellent guide then, Apostolos. So multi-talented, yes. All right. Well, let's move on to our first stop of our tour, which is the city of Ioannina.
So Ioannina, it's the capital of Epirus, and it's the capital of the region of Ioannina. It has the same name. And although the whole of Epirus has a population of about 320,000 people live in Epirus, Ioannina has about 110,000 people. So a lot of the people, they gather, of course, in the capital of the region of Epirus. It is a beautiful town because, first of all, it has a lake. And wherever you have the water element, of course, it makes a place much more beautiful. And the town is built by the lake. You can go on beautiful walks by the lake, and you have the old town and the new town next to each other. So now we can see a view on the photograph from the top of a mountain or the hill. We can see the whole city, how it's spread. And also we can see an island in the middle. There's an inhabited island in the middle, which is very interesting for someone to visit by taking a boat at the main pier of Ioannina. And that makes it fascinating. It has beautiful monasteries. You can visit at least 7 monasteries. You can go for hiking on that island. And that's only a tiny, tiny part of the city of Ioannina, what you can explore, because it has so much history. It goes also back to the Byzantine times. And don't forget, Greece was under the Ottomans for many years. So the city of Ioannina was under the Ottomans from the middle of the 15th century till the beginning of the 20th century. So we've been affected a lot by the Ottoman Empire and the Ottomans, and we will see that, of course, further down by visiting a lot of monuments in Ioannina that are related to the Ottoman period and Ottoman. And this is the beautiful promenade. It's full of coffee places. It's very lively. Don't forget, Ioannina is a university town. There are about 20,000 registered students in Ioannina, and that makes the town so lively. So it's full of restaurants and cafes and little bars by the water. People can go for a nice walk and enjoy. They can have their ice cream and have fun. And you can walk, and even you can ride the bike on the lakeshore. And everything is within walking distance in Ioannina. You can walk everywhere 10 to 20 minutes to the lake, to the new town, and to the old
town. Can you tell us what we're seeing here, Apostolos?
Yes, of course. This is a view from the top of a citadel in Ioannina. Ioannina has an old town, has an old fortification. It goes back to the 9th century, the time of the Byzantines. So we have an old town behind the fortification, which is still inhabited. You have a village within the town. So when you enter the gates of the castro, as we call it, the castle, the fortification, you feel like you're in a time machine. You're transported to the Ottoman times, and you can walk up the hill to visit 2 citadels with their 2 beautiful mosques, with their minarets that they go back to the Ottoman times, and especially the turn of the 19th century, 18th towards the 19th, when it was like the peak of Ioannina, under a very famous or also infamous leader, a governor, an Ottoman governor called Ali Pasha, that during his time, although he was a harsh leader, the town really became a merchant center, a trade center, and also a center for the letters, and has developed a lot for the whole Balkans, and not only. So it was a very big town for the trade routes. And that picture is from the top of one of the citadels that you have all these beautiful Ottoman buildings. And this is very nice. This is, of course, a church. The main religion of Greece is Greek Orthodox. We have a lot of chapels and churches, and some of them have been renovated and restored. And what is beautiful, I want to point out, this is from frescoes from a monastery of Philanthropinon on the little island in the middle of the lake. And of course, we see all the religious figures, and these monasteries and churches, they go back many years ago. But what is important is, like in Epirus, you can see in several churches a pattern that you can see frescoes that they depict the Greek ancient philosophers like Plato, Socrates, Aristotle. Of course, these are not religious figures. They don't have a halo, but it's important because for the Greek Orthodox Church, they were the philosophers that they talked for the one and only God. So the Greek Orthodox Church, to honor them, they can be depicted in frescoes in church. And this is unique, if we think that we're talking about a different era, how important it is for the history of art in Epirus. This is one of the most beautiful buildings in Ioannina. This is the synagogue, the Roman synagogue. And I want to say something here. Something unique about Epirus, and especially Ioannina, the capital of Epirus. Till the beginning of the 20th century, there used to be a fantastic coexistence about three communities: the Greek Orthodox community, the Muslim community, and the Roman Jewish community. The Roman Jewish community is one of the oldest Jewish communities in the world, and they're called Roman because they're Greek Jews. They're not Sephardic, they're not Ashkenazi. They used to have their own, and they still do, their own synagogue. And this is a jewel for the history of Ioannina, because this old synagogue survived World War II and the Nazi occupation in Ioannina, which is a very interesting and, of course, very sad part of the history. And it opens only for Yom Kippur, for the New Year, every year. But what I've managed to do is when I'm traveling with my travelers in Epirus, they open the synagogue just for us, just to go and visit and learn this fascinating history. Today, the Jewish community of Romanians in Ioannina has a number about 30 members at the moment. So it was very important, this coexistence of the three communities. And it's beautiful to see the churches, the synagogue, and also the mosques, that they're not in use anymore, like we see now with the minarets. They're beautiful. You can enter and see how a mosque looks like. And one of them has become, it is the Ethnographic Museum. It's the museum that it's a must to go and see, because in that museum, it shows the history of the coexistence of the three communities of Ioannina. So people should be very proud of this museum and bringing the different cultures together. And these pictures are taken from the top of the hill of the citadels, where you have an amazing view of the lake.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing about that, Apostolos. And I also want to ask about silversmithing. I know that silver and the art of silversmithing are very significant in Ioannina. Can you share a little bit about that and this site as well?
Of course. First of all, we see the Silversmithing Museum. To have a museum so beautiful and so technologically advanced, it means a lot for the city of Ioannina. That means silversmithing has played a very important role for many centuries in town. Silversmithing has been an art. The people of Ioannina and the Epirus are the best artists in silversmithing, creating jewelry and also other items, even religious items made of silver. And still today, their families, because the artistry is taught from grandfather to son to the grandson, and still we have a lot of workshops of silversmithing. So it's an alive art. People can see this being made. And also this museum, which is in a restored building that used to be the cook houses of the soldiers of Alipasa. That's why you can see in the picture the two chimneys. So there used to be the cook houses, and these beautiful buildings on the top of the citadels. It's been renovated, and now it's one of the gems of the city of Ioannina. It's a must to visit because you can learn about silversmithing, the whole history, but also the process of creating all these pieces of art.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing a little more about that. And I was wondering if there are any other museums that travelers to Ioannina should have on their list.
I think a very interesting museum, it's the Archaeological Museum. So if people have free time, it's nice to see the Archaeological Museum, because you can see all the different historical periods of Epirus in the different counties, the excavations of the different archaeological sites from BC to AD. Everything has to do with the archaeology in a beautiful building in downtown Ioannina, not far away within walking distance. So these are definitely the museums that I would recommend on a visit in Ioannina.
Well, thank you for that tour of Ioannina, Apostolos. And now we are continuing on to the Zagori villages.
Oh, what can I say about the Zagori village? First of all, I'm going to start with the great news that recently, very recent, Zagori villages were added in the UNESCO list of protected heritage, and it was recognized as a cultural landscape. What I mean by saying that, it is an outstanding example of a traditional settlement of houses. They're made of stone. And this is something unique. It's been preserved for hundreds of years. And here in the picture, we can see in one of the villages of Zagori. And that's why it's been recognized by UNESCO. Imagine an area up in the mountains, which is extremely remote, very hard access for people, but people to be able to communicate through the villages. There's a network of villages of 45 villages in Zagori. They made these cobblestone paths and these beautiful bridges made of stone to be able to connect them. But also, you're amazed when you go there by the beautiful village houses, but also the mansion houses, public buildings and schools that they were made with funds by wealthy Zagorians, people of Zagori. They moved to the Balkans, Central Europe, Constantinople, Asia Minor. They made their wealth as merchants, a lot of them, and that happened especially in the 18th and 19th century, and they sent money back to their villages, and they built these masterpieces. So that's why it's recognized, because you have all these influences by different countries, the architectural style as well, to create these buildings that you won't find in any other place of Greece. You would see these beautiful schools, for example, that at that time, at the late 19th century, all the beautiful mansion house we see, you wouldn't even see in Athens. So the Zagorians, they invested a lot, but also displayed their role, the fact that through the centuries, especially the 18th and the beginning of the 19th century, you can see a school now, how beautiful school that was built in the 1860s. This school was not going to be built in any part of Greece. You can imagine Greece used to be a very poor country. So with all these funds, they created all these beautiful stone buildings, but also it has to do with the fact that they have made the people of Zagori, of these villages, a pact, an agreement with the Ottomans to keep their own self-governance. So it was kind of like self-independent. And that helped them a lot to develop and create their own culture. And we can see also a classroom of one of the schools in Zagori, how it used to be with the wooden desks, where it functioned up to the 1980s. Unfortunately, people have been moving to the big cities, so a lot of the schools have closed down, but they still keep them so people can go and visit them and see how life was in a village classroom. And here you can see the cobblestone paths. You can imagine you can walk from one village to the other, one neighborhood to the other, and people, they love the flowers, the plants, and all the ladies of the house, they have their beautiful roses and plants they water every day to welcome their guests. But also they want to have their courtyard and their street look nice. And you can see beautiful wooden door of a house in Zagori that opens up to a courtyard, because before you enter the house, there's this beautiful courtyard which is like hidden, and you go through these beautiful doors. It's a magical place. You think you're in a different world when you walk through these villages. And we're talking about 45 villages, many villages to choose.
Yes, and so I'm so glad you included this picture of the cat, because I am a cat lady. But I was just wondering, Apostolos, you said there was 45 villages. Can you visit all of them? Are all of them open to visitors?
Of course there are. Some of them, they don't have a lot of residents. Some of them, they might have 2 or 3 residents, and some of them might have 30 or 40 residents. It depends. Of course, they're open to the public. You can go and visit. You can make your list, what village you'll go and see. There are some villages that are more popular. They attract more visitors, and there are some that are completely off the beaten track. You can go and just walk through the house and admire the architecture, listening to the sounds of nature. And here we can see that a lot of the houses, and this has been recognized a lot, they're painted, they're hand painted, the walls of the houses, beautiful ceilings and and furniture, and it's very common in the decoration of Zagori to have paintings with thematics, like for example, nature, animals, and birds and flowers on the walls of the houses, especially the old mansion houses.
Beautiful. And I was wondering, on your tours, do you actually stay in a Zagori village, like spend some nights in a Zagori village during your tours, Apostolos?
We do. I don't want to reveal a lot. There are surprise villages, some of them. So we stay like bigger and smaller villages, and of course we connect with the locals, and we walk and we understand the architecture, and let's say, we were introduced to the gastronomy and the local culture. So everything comes together, and people, they really understand the history and the beauty of Zagori. And this is very nice. I like this because I've taken this picture. It's like in Eastern Zagori, because Zagori has three parts. It's the Central Zagori, Western, and East. And also there's a difference, of course, in geology, because part of Zagori, it belongs in a geopark because of the stones are very important. And for example, in the Central and Western Zagori, there is white limestone, and the Eastern Zagori, where we see now, they have more stone of gray clay, so that makes a difference. And no, of course, also the fauna is very different. There are much more forest in Eastern Zagori, and here what we see, it's a coffee place. So here you can have a nice rest on the only coffee shop in the central square, which is also a grocery store, where you can buy the basic. You can buy flour and sugar, and you can have your Greek coffee, and maybe have something to eat, an omelette, fresh eggs from the hands from the neighborhood. And also in this particular one that you can see the big window, the green window on the top, that used to be the school. So it used to be the place, the socialization hub, let's say, for the villagers getting together, and then the kids would be upstairs having their classes. And I find this fascinating. And this is a place that we go and visit and just have a genuine, relaxing experience at the main square of Zagori village.
And can you share a little bit more about this building? It's pretty unique looking.
It's very unique, and here you can see the artistry of the stone masonry, because the Epirus, something very important as well. They were amazing stone masons. They knew how to build with the stone. Don't forget this amazing bridges that we saw. So you need to be a very good engineer to do that, but also you need to how to build with the stone. And this is a church. It comes from the monastery of Rogovo. It's a beautiful monastery. There are a lot of monasteries that are abandoned, and you can go and visit. They're next to a cave, a ravine, a gorge. They're in beautiful, beautiful settings. And usually the monasteries were built in places that people wouldn't have access. So they would hide themselves from the bandits, from looters. So they're in beautiful setting. And you can find scattered chapels and, of course, monasteries all over Zagori.
Well, I love how you mentioned they're so isolated. I think that really does contribute to the natural beauty of these villages. And this is a little different than the stonework that we've been seeing. Can you tell us about these structures?
But this is a house. These are huts that separate nomads they used. There's a special group of people called Sarakatsani that for many years, what they used to do, they used to travel with their goats and the sheep. They used to go up to the pasture lands, up in the mountains. And usually they used to do that in April, around St. George's celebration, the 23rd of April. They used to take, when the weather was getting better, they used to take their animals up to the mountains to graze. And then they would come back to the valley. And we say it's St. Demetrius Day, around the 26th of October, because it would start rain and have snow. So they used to bring down in the valley, and they used to have these huts where they would live there. They had a hut that was the school for the kids, a hut that was the kitchen, another one that you had the little homes, the bedrooms. So these people, little by little, they started being integrated and living permanently in the village. But still, we have a lot of shepherds nowadays in Greece, and this is beautiful because you have a very good quality of meat. in Zagori. It's a very good quality of meat in Epirus in general, because you still have a lot of free grazing animals that they travel in different regions of Epirus, and that makes, of course, that's a beautiful part. And while we're traveling, we see the animals, we see the shepherds, we see the sheep and the goats, and this is a beautiful and important cultural characteristic of the region of Epirus.
Well, thank you so much for that tour of the Zagori villages, Apostolos. They sure are beautiful. And now we're going to move just outside the villages to the nearby Vikos Gorge. Can you tell us a little bit about this park?
Of course, Vikos Gorge is one of the highlights of Epirus. Many people, they come to Epirus to see the Vikos Gorge. It is considered one, if not the only one of the deepest gorges in the world in ratio, the depth with the length and the width. The length is about 7 miles, but the depth can reach up to 3,600 feet, 3,300 to 3,600 feet. It can be deep, and also it can get narrow up to 650 feet. So you can imagine that creates an amazing scenery. And there are viewpoints in Zagori. There are definitely at least 4 that you can go and admire the Vikos Gorge. It doesn't mean you have to hike. You can go and see from different angles. But for the most adventures, they can hike it. Depending on your pace, it takes about 6 to 7 hours to hike. Of course, you have to protect the environment because we are in a national park zone and you cannot spend the night there. So you have to cross. You have to go in the morning and later you have to be out of the gorge. And that makes it very, very beautiful. And something I would like to point out, something about unique about the gorge, it's its flora and fauna. That's why it is protected. First of all, there are at least 180 species of birds, and one of them is the golden eagle that they're protected. Also, you have 24 mammals, and the small brown bear is one of them that is protected, and you can find at the Vikos Gorge and in the area, in the wider area of Zagori as well. And what can I say about the plants and the flowers and the herbs? And the herbs have played such an important role in the region for their medicinal purposes, for medical reasons. Through the years when, medicine hasn't really come to these places, it played a very important role for the people. At least 1,800 plants and flowers. So it is, how can I say, a feast for the eyes and the aromas and the smells, especially if you're there, not only at springtime, during the whole year. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful place to be. And I definitely recommend just go and see that view and take in this glorious landscape.
Oh, beautiful. Well, have you ever done this hike, Apostolos, through the gorge?
Yes, I have. I've done the hike. I have to say it wasn't so easy as I thought it was going to be, because I'm not one of the greatest hikers, but it's a great opportunity. You can do it. And what you can do, you can hike, you can leave your car, go through a village, hike the gorge, go to the other side, and then you call a taxi to come and pick you up and take you back to your car. So you cannot go back and forth, of course, in one day. This is not possible. Mm-hmm. Definitely, I don't recommend.
Oh, well, that is a great tip. Thank you for sharing. And I know that you talked a lot about the people who live in the villages of Epirus, and it sounds like they are, really what make this region so special. Can you tell us a little bit more about the people you'll meet when you're traveling through this area?
When you travel, the people and the food, make the difference on the trip. And people are very proud of being Epiros, coming from Epirus. They're very proud of their property. They're very proud, like the lady that she's showing us here, her potatoes and her vegetable garden. So this is, first of all, this is very common because people are self-sufficient. You have vegetable gardens. In mountains, you don't have so much land. There are, of course, small plains and valleys. So everyone has their own little garden where they pick up their own vegetables. And when you go and eat in a taverna, they bring you your salad, all the ingredients from what people have in their own gardens. And this is beautiful. So wherever you go, you're going to see these vegetable gardens, and people are very happy to show you and explain to you what they grow, and they like exchange information. And now we can see, of course, the goats. You see a lot of animals when you travel, and people They have their own domestic animals, but also they're like shepherds. They have stables and they have more than 50 goats or sheep. And it is a big part of the economy, the dairy products, because Epirus, it's one of the number one producers of dairy products with the best feta cheese in Greece, and maybe in the world. It's the Greek origin, the feta cheese coming from sheep and also some goat milk and other types of cheese like graviera. They come from the dairy products, and you see the example every day while you're traveling.
Oh, and yeah, the shepherd, when a traveler, say I was traveling through here as an American, would these people be receptive to, meeting with somebody like me, or just, having a
They would be.
having a conversation, just a friendly conversation?
It would be. It doesn't mean everyone speaks English. Of course, we have to accept that. But during the tour, we learn always some Greek phrases, so it's nice to communicate. And I believe if you really want to communicate with people, and people are always smiling. And sometimes when they see people out of nowhere, they arrive, they're just very astonished, they're surprised because they're not used to see a lot of travelers. And when I'm doing my tours, the tour members are to 12 people. So we travel with the minivan to places. You cannot go with the big bus because it's impossible to get there with the big bus. So we go to places that are very isolated, and we meet and connect with the people and enjoy the culture. So I think this gentleman here, he's wearing his cape, and he's very happy to take a picture, because I don't know if someone else has asked him to take the picture. He's there taking care of the animals all day with his shepherd dog. So we're meeting a lot of people, and this is the beautiful thing. It is not an experience which is built just for tourists. Mm-hmm. It has real everyday life that we experience that just by being observant and integrating into the local culture with all the respect for sustainable development for these regions.
Beautiful. It sounds like you've certainly found a back door, Apostolos, as we would say at Rick Steves Europe. And, of course, as you mentioned, a lot of people have their own gardens and they're very self-sufficient, but there are still grocery stores in some villages. Can you talk a little bit about this image?
So this is, I don't know, this is like the big supermarket of my area, because this is from Pogoni, the area where I am. And this is a village. And the lady has this grocery store. And also it has like a little coffee shop. On the other side, you have a couple of tables with a heater for winter. So the locals, they go there and they have a little Greek and they have the Greek coffee while they do their shopping. So you can see the old scale. And they have, but she even has bananas, you see, which is something imported. So that means she has her providers that they come to their store, and I can see the spaghetti, and they have the washing liquid, and they have oranges. So they bring a little bit representative to be able to provide the village. And also something I would like to say, something that happens in my own village, because we don't have a coffee shop here where I am. We don't have a grocery store. So for the nearest grocery store of that type, I have to drive 30 minutes. Otherwise, I have to drive 40 miles to go to Ioannina to do my shopping in the bigger supermarket. So I better be happy with what I find, which is perfect. But also in most of the villages, if I don't say possibly all, special days, a baker comes with his minivan, which is like a mini supermarket. So he opens his door, his minivan, and has fresh bread. In my village, he comes every Monday and every Thursday. If he comes to my doorstep, he brings me fresh bread from his bakery, but also he has some basic goods like ham and cheese, or else what you like to buy. So he has the basic. And of course, a lot of people, especially the elderly people, they don't drive, or they don't know how to drive, or it's very hard to go to another place. The baker, the supermarket comes to your door.
Oh, well, that is amazing. That I know a lot of people during the pandemic were using apps to have a similar service, but I'm guessing the goods you were getting from this baker are a lot better.
And also, it's a nice way to communicate, because a lot of people, there are only 10 people in the village, 5, 10, 20. So when the baker comes, the baker brings the news. The nearby village, what has been happening, because people, they don't use internet so much in these places. They have television at home. So it's very important, this interaction. It means a lot to them, and their how can I say, their survival and their eagerness and enthusiasm to live.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, it's just, maybe just one service, but serves so many purposes. So that is very interesting. Now we are going to switch gears a little bit to the local artwork and local artisans of Epirus. Can you tell us about what these ladies here are working on?
Yes, they're working on a then working on a carpet. It takes a lot of time to make it. And weaving has been a very important part of the Epirus culture, and not only of Epirus, in many places in Greece and all over Europe, when we didn't have industrial goods made, textiles, materials. So weaving has been a very important part of the culture of Epirus. And in many villages in Epirus, they used to have the weaving schools for girls, where they would go there and learn how to use the loom, to do embroidery, sewing. So a lot of women of the older generations, let's say the generations of my grandmothers, they learn how to weave. Unfortunately, through the years, that faded away because of commercialization of the industry. But now there is a revival. You can see here, this is in Pogoni, this is from my region. These ladies, they have gathered these looms together, and what they do, they're weaving and they're selling these products, and they're helping a lot of their local communities. And also they teach the younger girls how to be able to continue the tradition of weaving and loom. This is a very important part of the Epirus culture. And during the tour, we'll be able to see this place and these lovely ladies that they live in the village. They're living the village, and this is how they spend their free time as retired.
And can you also tell us about what this nun here is working on?
Yes, this is a lovely nun that she lives in a monastery just by herself, in a beautiful monastery in one of the villages in Zagori. And she's an art historian. She's also an artist, and she makes beautiful mosaics, because mosaic is another artistry. So she's been creating this Greek saint that was commissioned to her for a bigger church just outside of Ioannina. And it's magical, it's beautiful. And every time I go to Zagori, I go and visit her, and we talk about art, and she can explain to you all the frescoes, and she can connect all the periods of time. She can talk to you even about Impressionism and Michelangelo, and how all this artwork is connected through time and through countries. So she's an amazing, and you wouldn't expect that from a nun, but of course, a lot of the nuns are very, very well educated. And it brings me great pleasure every time to go and see her.
Oh, that's amazing. Do you happen to know how long this piece has taken her?
Yes, it took her more than 2 years. I don't know how frequently she worked, but you can imagine, to be able to compile everything. It took her 2 years. Now it's done, and I know she gave it to the church, and she told me recently, Apostolos, you have to go and see it. I haven't been there, and now she's going to start doing something else. And also, she's a teacher. She's teaching a lot of students how to make the mosaic. And this is the most important thing. We don't want all these arts to be lost. So it's very, very important. There's still young people, they're interested in learning about silversmithing and the mosaic and the weaving and the stone masonry as well, because little by little, newer generations are involved in other things than the old traditional artistry.
Mm-hmm. And I know we touched on silversmithing earlier, but it's also still alive in the villages. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I would like to say, now that we've seen this picture, Sirako, before I talk about the silversmithing, is that Sirako, this beautiful village that for many villages is one of the top 5 most beautiful villages of Greece, it has something unique about weaving. in the 19th century, they used to have thousands and thousands of sheep and goats up in the mountains. People were involved in livestock breeding, and they used to weave and send thousands of capes and undergarments to the army of Napoleon Bonaparte during the Napoleonic Wars. You can imagine how important it was for the trade. All this wool, all these capes and undergarments to leave from a village of Siraco, which is in the mountain range of Jumerca, Rathamanikaori, to make all the travel to France or the Russian front, where the war was taking place. So the battles were taking place. So it's amazing how these places they have developed through these craftsmanship. And of course, if we can talk also about silversmithing, that we saw the museum, which is dedicated in Ioannina. Another village was called Kalarites, which is opposite Siraco. So you can have two villages which are opposite to each other. One was the top on weaving, and the other one was in silversmithing, Kalarites, because Kalarites and Ioannina, this is where you had some of the main art centers of silversmithing, and you can see some items made, of course, of silver. And what is unique is that from Kalarites, we have this very famous family that started from there, the famous jeweler called Bulgari, that we all know with this flagship store, Via Condotti in Rome. It's beautiful, that all the stars have been wearing this beautiful jeweler, Bulgari. Bulgari is a Greek family origin. It's called Vulgaris. So V through the years became a B and became Bulgari. That the family came from Kalarites. They moved to Thesprotia, to another region in the town of Paramithia, and there Sotirio Bulgari, the founder, Vulgaris, the founder of the Bulgari family and jewelry empire, he opened his first store in Thesprotia in the town of Paramithia. And later, because of wars with the Ottomans, he moved to Corfu. From there, he went to Naples, towards the west, to Italy, and he ended up and created his empire with a base in Rome. And it's an amazing story that someone can definitely find a lot of information on the internet, how this family, that now, of course, is an Italian family, its roots come from Greece and from Epirus. And that shows, of course, how important it has been silversmithing. So the Epirus are very proud that the Bulgari jewelry comes through the ages from the silversmiths of Epirus.
Yeah, well, it is, it's truly incredible that, like you said, this jewelry empire has fairly humble roots. Does the Bulgari family honor those roots today?
They do. They come to Greece, they come to Epirus, although they don't speak Greek, they're Italian, but the family, they come to Paramithia, they come and visit the place where you could go and see where the old store used to be. And also, the family, many years ago, has donated, has built a school for the village, and now it's going to be turned into a cultural center. So they try to contribute as much as they can. And I think this is very touching, because although they're Italian, they haven't forgotten the roots of the founder of Sotirio Bulgari. And of course, that honors the Greeks, and we definitely respect that.
Well, thank you for sharing that backstory. It's, I think it's really cool to see like a jewelry empire of today and being able to track that back to, artwork like this. So thank you for sharing a little more about that, Apostolos. And now I was hoping we could talk about some of the celebrations and festivals that happen in Epirus.
Yes, I mean, you cannot understand a culture if you don't understand its own music. And the Epirus love music. They love to celebrate. They like to have festivals. You can see here a group of musicians, the lovely musicians. They come to Epirus and they go and play in different tavernas, in different occasions when they're invited. And in the middle of the picture, we can see the clarino, the clarinet, which is one of the basic organs of the Epirus music. And the Epirus music has been an integral part of the culture of the people of Epirus, because we have, first of all, the festivals, celebrations, and they're religious festivals. They are religious celebrations where we celebrate the name days of saints. And they start usually in May, at springtime, and it goes all the way to September. So now this time of the year of the festivals, for example, there's a very big festival, the 15th of August, during the time of the Assumption of the Virgin Mary. The one in picture you can see here is from a village that on the 20th of July, in some days, they celebrate Saint Elias. Usually the chapels of Saint Elias are on the top of the hill, on the top of the village. And you can see here the president of the village ringing the bell. So it's 8:30 in the morning for the procession, for the liturgy, 20th of July. So the people of the village, they're going to hear the sound and going to make their way to the chapel. Well, all of them are going to celebrate, and later they're going to eat together. They're going to cook something. They're going to celebrate. They exchange their wishes. So the celebrations, the religious celebrations, are very important for the local culture. And of course, the cohesion of the community. The community comes together through these celebrations. It's an opportunity to meet your friends and your family and to enjoy. And of course, we can see here some of beautiful churches. What can I say, with the iconostasis made of sculpted wood. And here we can see Jesus in one of the monasteries in Pohoni. These are amazing places you can go and visit, and they're open to the public. And in some places, the village come and open the door and see the church. But we're talking about masterpieces, and these are places that they're high up in the mountains. They're not like in a big city. It shows the belief of people, and also the wealth of the people at the time. They want to invest in a beautiful church in their village, and that makes it special. And every church has its own story, and also its own folklore story. There's also like a small, like, urban myth related to a church, and I find that fascinating.
Well, I know sometimes these festivals are smaller and intimate, such as the ones you may see here, and some of them are, larger parties, like you said, like the villagers all coming together to celebrate. If somebody was traveling through Zagori or, any of these villages during one of these festivals, would it be okay for them to try to join in respectfully? How should a traveler navigate that?
I think it's the easiest thing, and that's the best thing you can do to integrate into the culture. It doesn't mean you have to be Greek Orthodox. It doesn't mean you have to be religious. Nothing at all. It's a part of everyday culture. Like we see in the picture, this is a chapel that opens only once a year, St. Constantine's and Helen's, and it's in May. So this particular day, the villagers, they go and open this special offering chapel that belongs to a family on their field, and all the people, they go. So we went there to see and celebrate with the locals. And of course, you're welcome. People, they want to share the culture with you. So they won't see you in a curious way. On the contrary, they would smile at you, they would treat you, they had pastries, they would say, come inside. You feel you're a part of the culture. And I think that has to do with the hospitality of the Epirus. And here we can see, of course, the dance. The dancing that usually sometimes there are parties, festivals for 3 nights. So there's the night before, the evening, before the celebration, and you can see people dance under the plane tree. The plane tree, it's the symbol. The plane tree is a type of tree, it was like a sycamore tree, between the sycamore tree and the maple tree. And it is symbol of every square in the villages where people dance and they gather. And it's like the tree protects the people. It's the point of reference and meeting for the people. And this is where they celebrate. They eat. Sometimes they offer you free food. People cook on big cauldrons, and it can be seed, it can be veal with rice, or it can be with wheat. And of course, I should not omit that Epirus is almost synonym to the pies, to the pites, as we say. The Epirus, they love making pites. And here you can see the lady, Mrs. Frost. She's an amazing cook. She makes this wonderful vegetable pie that using the herbs that she has in her gardens. People use whatever they have. They don't order, from the grocery store. They don't go to a deli store. They use whatever they have. So if they like something, they're going to put something else on the pie. And it's so delicious because she opens the filo. She makes the filo. She makes the dough. So everything is from scratch. So can you imagine traveling? You cannot resist on the food. So there is always not only a lot of food, but organic, you would call it, biological. I would say normal, just out there being in nature. And a lot of mushrooms and truffles. Black truffles, white truffles, Epirus is the right place for that. So you can have a lot of food with different mushrooms, like the risotto. You can see that they sprinkle on the top white truffle and with some zucchini. They do special recipes. And I like that because the Epirus cuisine always reinvents itself. We're talking about gastronomy, but simple gastronomy, not fusion. Simple ingredients, putting them together, and the taste is something super.
Oh, well, I'm so glad that you have just touched on really driven home the fact that all the food they eat comes from just the land around them. And I can't imagine how good all of these dishes taste. So thank you so much for making us all hungry, Apostolos. All right, next. Okay, next on our tour is the ancient oracle of Dodona. And I was wondering, Apostolos, while we get started here, if you could just kind of briefly explain what an oracle is. I know I've tried to do some research and I've been a little confused by the definition myself.
Okay, when we talk about the word oracle, we don't mean that oracle is a person, it's a place. So it's a sacred place where people, individuals, they would go and take some advice, they would ask questions, and they would get an advice for what's going to happen in the future, like a prophecy, that it was given through a medium that would have been a priest or a priestess, that it was given by the god, that it was dedicated the sanctuary. In Dodona, we have Zeus, who's, of course, the king of gods. So the priest or priestess, they used to answer the questions of the people. They would write on lead tablets made of lead, and write questions. And then this would be interpreted by a sacred oak, by an oak tree, because there used to be a woods full of oaks. And because of, how can I say, the rustling of the leaves and the way the birds moved on the tree, the way they nested, the way they used to fly, that has to do, of course, the importance of nature at that time. They used to give the answer according to all the signs of the tree, and that makes it so beautiful. And the questions that people had at that time, because what they have found, the inscriptions, there were questions like we might have today. Should I marry that person? What should they do to get over, an illness I might have? Or at that time, they would say, what should I sacrifice to God so I can find my vision again, or my sight, or a health problem someone might have? So it's quite interesting. And what I love here is how sacred the oak tree used to be. Like, of course, the oak tree for many cultures is considered a sacred tree, but the connection to nature and to Epirus has played an important role. And here we can see one of the travelers that is meditating. It's because, you're in front of a Noach. A Noach used to be the sacred tree of Dodona, of the sanctuary of Zeus. And she's meditating there because you can hear the sounds of the bird, and you can walk, and it's on a narrow valley. It has a beautiful view of a mountain called Tomaros. It's a beautiful place to be. And what I want to say, all these places, they have a special energy. There's some mysticism. So it really attracts you being there and being in nature and learning all the story by, our specialized local guides that are there to take us and show us everything. And of course, in Dodona, there's a beautiful theater, ancient theater. There used to be a stadium, and the ancient theater, as we see, during the summer, they have a festival. So they show a lot of plays there, and it's magical to be there on a summer evening of July. Just looking at an ancient Greek comedy or a tragedy. This is beautiful. And I like that, the Greeks, they live in the Epirus with their monuments, of course, with all the respect, but we try to promote them as much as we can. And Dodona, it's a beautiful place.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that that description. That kind of just gives me chills hearing that people were coming to the Oracle asking questions that we are still asking today. So that's kind of humbling, I guess. But yeah, very cool. Thank you for that, Apostolos. And now, on a slightly different note, we are going to look at the Acheron River, or also known as the gateway
Acheron,
to Hades.
Acheron, yeah, Acheron, the river. It used to be the gateway to Hades, according to the ancient Greeks. First of all, I want to say, Acheron, it's a beautiful river. Although it's connected to death and the gateway to Hades, to the underworld, it is one of the most beautiful rivers in Epirus. So it is just a great joy to be there and walk inside the river. But we have to say that the ancient Greeks, they believed when someone would die, the soul would be transported with the assistance of Hermes used to be the messenger of God, but also used to be the person who would accompany the souls to the underworld, to Acheron, the river, where it would be welcomed, let's say, there by Acheron, which was like death, where when he ferried his boat by giving him a coin, would take you to Hades, to Pluto, Hades, in the underworld. And this river would connect with other two rivers during the ancient times, and it would flow itself into a lake where close by used to be the necromantio, the oracle of the dead. Something I would like to say about the river. Acherodas possibly comes from the ancient Greek word achos, that means sorrow, which is quite interesting where the name comes from. And also it is a place that you can go for walking in the river, especially during the summer. It is not so deep. People can go swimming. And also if people want and they have free time, they can go into kayaking. They can do rafting in the river as well. But I think the most amazing is to be there early in the morning with no other people, to feel the energy of the place and walk barefoot, with your water shoes inside the river. It's unique. We're going to see the springs come out, meaning these are the gates of Hades. This is what people believed. So it's a magic moment. And don't forget, we have a lot of mythological references, and to Dodona and to Acherodas, because in Acherodas we have so many myths connected to the underworld. First of all, we have a lot of references in Homer at the Odyssey. Also, don't forget, there is the wonderful myth of Orpheus and Eurydice that talks about music and art and love and death. And also Persephone, the wife, Hades, that she used to be the daughter of Demeter, the goddess of harvest. So all of these stories coming together they're so beautiful. You have a history with the myths tangled together. It's beautiful. And Dodona also, that we saw the sanctuary and the sacred oath we talked about. It's amazing because there's so many mythological references as well. For example, Jason and his Argonauts, before they left to go and find the golden fleece, they went to Dodona according to the story, and they were taken a piece of wood by one of the sacred trees of the oak woods, and they put it on their bow of the boat, so it would work, it would function as an orientation, as a compass. So there are all these stories related to these places, and we hear about them and we talk them. And of course, there's been a lot of archaeological excavations with different theories what every place used to be, like the necromantio, the oracle of the dead. Necros in Greek means dead, like we said, necropolis, for example. Then mantio means the oracle of the dead. It is considered the different theories. One of them is that it could have been a place where there used to be the oracle of the dead. People would go there to meet their dead family and talk. And this is what Odysseus did that he went there to meet his dead father, according to Homer, the information we have. It's a very interesting place, and you can see we go underground, and you see these arches. There is all this mystery and all this assumption what this place could have been. So it's a wonderful place to go and discover.
And I believe this is also related to the Oracle of the Dead. Can you, tell us what we're looking at here?
It is related to the Oracle of the Dead because it is built on the top of the hill. We have a beautiful plain, so it's a very nice. I like this the sky with the colors of the sky, the clouds with the green and the old stone, so that looks beautiful. And something I would like to add. All these places, announced in Dodona and the Acheron and the other world, they have inspired so much all over the world, art internationally. Painters and writers and poets. And one poet that was inspired and traveled in Epirus was Lord Byron, the famous romantic poet. So he has written this beautiful poetry that he was inspired by the Dodona and the Acheron River. And this is beautiful. We have all these references of these travelers that traveled in Greece in the 19th century. And they visited all these places. And that, of course, makes it even more fascinating, having all these points of reference.
Well, it is always incredible to me when a certain place has inspired so many writers and myths, as you pointed out earlier. So thank you for diving into that, Apostolos. And we have time for just one more stop on our tour, and we are heading to Meteora. Can you...
Yes, what I would
give us
Meteora is not in Epirus. We have to clear that because we've showed the Epirus. Meteora is in Thessaly. So Thessaly is to the eastern part of Epirus. After Epirus to the eastern part, we have Macedonia and Thessaly. And I want to mention Meteora because first of all, it's a part of my tour, and we traveled there on our way to Athens from Ioannina because it's not far away from Ioannina. We can get there early and visit. And it's unique Meteora. And I wanted to put that because people ask many questions about Meteora. And it's one of the most visited places in Greece. People, they definitely want to go. So I want to give the information for individual travelers as well. First of all, you have this amazing vertical rocks, stones. It's a unique geological phenomenon. It is amazing. It surprises you when you see it, you feel awe. And you have 6 monasteries built on the top of some of these rocks. There used to be 24. And it started many years ago during the 9th century AD, where you had some monks, they lived in caves around the area. In the 11th century, they started creating a community. And later, through the centuries, they created all these beautiful monasteries. Today, we have 6 monasteries that you can visit. There are some steps in some of them they're not. Some of them it's quite flat. There are monasteries that you have to go up 300 steps. There are other monasteries you have to go 140, 150 steps, but you can have access to them according to your ability, of course, to walk and how active you are. And it is a unique place. There's a town in Kalabaka. There are nice villages nearby. You can go for lunch. Going from Ioannina, it will take you about 1 hour and 40 minutes to get there, which is very easy. You can do it. Going from Athens, it might take 4.5 hours. Now there's a new part of the freeway. You might get a little faster, but to go for one day, it can be a bit tiring. People do that. They take the train or they take the bus and they go on a daily trip. If you come from Athens, I would recommend to spend one night there because it will be less tiring because you're going to spend like 10 hours traveling for the day. If you don't have time, yes, you can do it. I wouldn't recommend it so much. Ideally, it would be nice to be in Epirus, and from Epirus, you have a car to go to Meteora in the morning, see the monasteries, of course, tolerate the crowds because it's going to be very, very busy, but it's worth seeing. It's like going to the Acropolis also. It's a place that you meet the crowds. So I would say if you go during the opening time or if you spend the night there, you can go in the evening to see the scenery. But the monasteries, they close 4 or 5 o'clock, depending on the monastery. During the peak season, they open around 9 o'clock. And you can visit. You can hire, if you want, a specialized licensed guide from the area to take you on the tour. You can go by yourself. It's something unique. You have to see it. So it's something that I think it's one of the highlights of the tours of the tour, returning back to Athens through Thessaly. But of course, people are so much amazed by the wonders of Epirus that, on our way there, we see that, and I think we wrap up the whole experience on a beautiful trip.
Well, thank you, Apostolos. And I love that you mentioned, your recommendation to spend the night there if you are day tripping from Athens. At Rick Steves Europe, we do always like to recommend spending the night in a place that is more heavily touristed. And that's because, like you said, you really can beat the crowds in the morning and in the evening that way. So thank you for sharing. And with that, that does include our tour of Epirus. So thank you so much, Apostolos, for being our virtual tour guide tonight. And let's see, before we get to our question and answer segment, we do have some people who are dying to pick your brain, Apostolos.
I'm ready. It's 12 minutes past 5 here in the morning. I couldn't be more ready for that.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad you're ready to go. But just a quick word from our sponsor before that. And tonight, our sponsor is our Athens and the Peloponnese e-guidebook. So that is an ebook, and it is usually $16.99, but today until July 17th, it is on sale for $3.99. So if you're planning a trip to Greece, that is a good opportunity to take advantage of a sale. And I believe Gabe just posted a link in the chat there, so keep an eye out for that. And now on to the Q&A portion of our evening. Starting off, Jennifer wants to know what you, Apostolos, miss most about Athens when you're in Epirus, and when you are what you miss most about Athens when you are in Epirus, and what you miss most about Epirus when you are in Athens.
Well, when I'm in Epirus and I'm in the country house, what I miss most about Athens is cultural life. Because it's a metropolis, so there's so many cultural activities taking place. So sometimes I wish I was there to join my friends and have fun. But then I think of the beauty. I'm here, and I let my friends come here and visit me. So we have fun here without the cultural activities of Athens. And this is what I miss. But when I am in Athens and when I miss sometimes, I miss the calmness. I miss the fact that I don't have any distractions. I have the sounds of nature, the animals. I can hear in the morning the sheep of the shepherd coming out of my window and the cattle. And I just feel like, life can be simpler, like the life in the big jungle in the city that so much I love being there as well.
Well, it sounds like you figured out how to get the best of both worlds there. So, sounds like yes. Oh, okay. Karen wants to know, can people take cooking classes in Epirus?
People, they can, if they want to, in the free time. You can find cooking classes. There are not many, but there's some very genuine cooking lessons you can take. And if you're going to be traveling with me, I cannot reveal more. There is a nice way we learn how to cook some of the Epirus food in a simple, but very, very, how can I say, a very simple and informal way, but very, very effective and beautiful.
I think you really did make people hungry there with all the talk of the fresh food. Okay, Greg is wondering what the best airport to fly in and out of would be when you are visiting Epirus.
Well, if you can drive from Athens, or you can take a bus from Athens, or you can fly to Ioannina. Ioannina has an airport. Depending on the season, usually there are 2 flights per day. Off season, it might be 1 flight per day. It changes from year to year. There is an airport in Ioannina, so you can fly straight to Epirus, and you can explore the area by coming to Ioannina. Also, there is an airport in Preveza, in the county of Preveza, was called Actio, and this airport opens only just for the season, and they have flights, they come from Europe. So you have more like budget flights, they come from different European destinations. You can also check on that. If you're like in another part of Europe, you can go to Actio, to Preveza, it's more southwest, and then you can start your way up to Epirus. But if you come to the heart of Epirus, you can travel, you can fly to Ioannina.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing. And let's see. Kelsey B is curious about the availability of your tours. Do you have any Epirus tours with availability in 2024? And if so, how should people sign up for your tours?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. I would like to say there are a few places left for a tour that it will take place in September, and starting on the 11th of September, and it's a Wonders of Epirus tour where we spend 13 nights. It's 14 days, my tours. If someone would like to sign up, they can go to my website, wondersofknowledge.com, and from there, they can email me, they can write me through the website, and I can reply. And also, I have introduced already my dates for 2025 already for the tours, and people have started already signing up. So you can send me an email asking me about all this information. I'll be very, very happy to reply. And also, I organize tours that they're more tailor made in Epirus. So if anyone would have like a small group of people, friends they would like to visit, we can definitely discuss this, and I can present them with an itinerary.
Well, that is very exciting. Maybe I will have to take one of those 2025 spots, Apostolos. Okay, just one more question. Gabe is wondering what the story is with the photos on your wall behind you. Are you a bird watcher?
I'm not really a bird watcher. I'm like an admirer of nature, and because you see a lot of birds. I've done bird watching actually at the lake of Ioannina, like an official bird watching. You can do that because it has so much great biodiversity by the lake, so you can really go and do bird watching. I've done this, but I'm not so much. I mean, I know a couple of things, but I admire looking at all the birds, and it makes the environment of the country house having a countryside theme. So, pictures of flowers and birds that you see in the area. Thank you.
Yes. Well, you may have awoken before the birds this morning. No, you had to get up pretty early. Well, thank you so much, Apostolos, for that tour of Epirus. I know that this really is a back door, and you're doing some very amazing and creative work with your tour. So thank you so much for giving us a little window into your other work.
Thank you. I would like to thank you personally. I would like to thank Rick Steves and also all the viewers, and especially those travelers that we've traveled together with the Athens and the Heart of Greece tour. It's a pleasure. We keep in touch. And I would like to wish to everyone have a beautiful rest of summer. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you again, Apostolos. And I hope that you have I was going to say a good rest of your night, but I know it's the beginning of the day for you, but yeah, thank you again. You are a wonderful ambassador to Epirus. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and have a nice evening.
All right. Well, good. Yes. Well, thank you. And Rick will be joining us next week on Monday Night Travel to discuss his most recent trip to Europe doing guidebook research. So make sure you sign up to join him live. And I just want to thank you all for joining us tonight. And I hope I'm sure you learned something about Epirus, as Apostolos is an excellent guide and teacher. But again, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week.